Hi, everybody. I'm Liz,
I'm Rob,
and
and
we
we're
are Liz
Liz
and
and
Rob.
Rob.
How are you doing today?
First off, I think we got that. This is the first time we've actually got that right.
We've been
So,
practicing
yeah, we've been practicing.
3 times in.
Yes.
So, we're going to be here to talk about life, love, and share a secret snack.
Yes.
And so, we want to start with the secret snacks.
As we always do,
All
yes.
right. So, first, I want to tell you that we're sharing the same tea.
Oh,
It's
what do we have?
a honey chai. I brewed
Okay.
it for you because you were not around, so I made that decision for you
Okay.
in our signature cups.
All right.
All right.
Cool.
So, you want to go first?
Yes. I figured since it was fall, I got you this. You can probably smell it and figure out what it is.
Is that a pumpkin muffin?
It is a pumpkin muffin.
I made pumpkin muffins for the tea party and I was going to give you one, but they were all gone. I didn't come home with anyone. So I like that we were thinking the same way. But what I did bring to you is not unlike other weeks. I did not make your secret snack. But almost always at the tea party, my friend Celia brings a snack because she knows that you love it. I'm generally all about the chocolate, but I know you love like lemony flavors and cranberry flavors. So she always brings these little lemon snacks.
Oh, wonderful.
And I think I'm going to pour some out because it'll make a crinkly noise
Right.
to get them. Okay. So if you want to just kind of take some of those snacks while
Right.
they're really yummy. Okay.
All right. Cool.
So now on to the love and life.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I wanted to start this week by saying I was really excited to do this podcast because we both had really busy weeks and I had some exciting things come up and I really wanted to share it with you and check in and get your response. How was your week?
My week was great. Actually, my past 48 hours was really good. So, really, just a bunch of we had a lot of great meetings. About two or three projects I've been really working on for various amounts of time. One project we had to sort of put on hold for a year for actually a really good reason, which when the time comes, I can talk about. And we're back on track with that. And another project which I've been working on for a number of years now looks like it's starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel. And another project I'm working on with another incredibly creative person just is moving forward. So it's been an incredibly productive week for me.
All right, I'm excited about that. The first thing that I wanted to share, and I'll give a little background to the people who are new to us. A bunch of years ago, you and I, with a small group of friends, co founded an organization called What Better Looks Like. And the premise, it started because I was a middle school teacher. And when I was first teaching, every year I would say to my class some version of, you guys are the future, and it is up to you to make the world a better place. And it's 32 years ago. One young woman one year raised her hand and she said to me, Miss Gannon, adults always say that, but what would better look like? And that became the question that changed my life. I said, what do you mean? And she said, this is how the world is. If you want me to make it better, what would that look like? So that question became my North Star. It became the question that created the rest of my life and work that unfolded. And when we co-founded it, we were based on a couple of key ideas. One came from my background, and I've talked a little bit about my dad. The idea that he trained me in Dr. King's idea of beloved community. So we're based on 4 different ideas. The first is that we're here to create the beloved community. The second idea came from something I did not know till I was an adult. And it's because I was raised in either cities or suburbs, and I really did not have a deep understanding and connection with nature the way other people understand nature. And I was at a peace conference at one point, and we were hiking in the woods, and someone said, wherever nature creates a poison, the antidote grows within reach. And I did not know that, but it was a mind-blowing idea. And I extrapolated to what I knew as a teacher and an educator, because there were all kinds of programs that they would bring into the school. And I knew that as good as they might be and as good as the material might be, they didn't seem to really have a connection with my students and seem that they would make a big difference in the lives of my students and how they moved forward after what was shared with them. And I said, but that's what Dr. King knew. And it was that idea that whoever is experiencing the problem has to have the say in the creation of the solution. And I think we've come to really recognize that more and more. The third idea came from you, which was you are an artist, and you said to me you thought that everyone came to the planet to be a healer, an artist, or a teacher, or some combination of the three. And then the fourth piece came into, like, the last puzzle piece of what better looks like was going to be came when I met my friend Marie. And when we met her, the only thing we knew about her was that she had survived the genocide in Rwanda.
Mm-hmm.
And when we went to meet her, and I described to her what we had hoped to do with What Better Looks Like, she was very engaged. And she said, I've been contacted by a lot of people who want me to share my sad story of the genocide. And she said, I don't want to share my sad story because then I become tied to my sad story. She said, but I like this vision of what it takes to create a better vision. And the word she said that became part of our mission statement is the idea that she said the reason the genocide was so deadly so quickly was it was so well organized at every level of society, right? The media and government and neighbors, all of that. And she said if we're going to be that well organized in the name of hate and violence, we had better get that well organized in the name of love. So part of what we do is help people envision infrastructures that would help support the development of a loving community. Okay, so that's just kind of a brief view of what we do. And a couple of weeks ago, one of our co-founders, my friend Robin, who is a teacher of social work at Stony Brook, had invited me to...
This is Stony Brook.
It's Stony Brook University
Right.
here on Long Island.
Right, because our audience isn't just on Long Island,
Right,
so I just
right,
want to
right.
make sure that
Stony Brook
that
University.
you are more specific. Yes.
And her specialty is human rights and social work, and that's what this class was. And she had asked me if I would come in, and we do different kinds of workshops and programs, but one of them is a visioning exercise where we ask people to answer two questions. For you right now in your life, what would better look like? And you can take that at any scale and any sphere. It could be something very elemental, like I need a safe place to stay after school. And the other question, which came from your question, is what are you here to heal, create, or teach? And I've done this class with 5-year-olds in the Girl Scouts. I've done it with grown-ups. I've done it with international leaders. And so when I asked her the focus of the particular class, she said that they were reading this book, and I don't know if you can get it, but it's Prentice Hemphill's book, What It Takes to Heal. So I picked up the book and I was reading it, and it's really a beautiful book that I especially love that they're teaching in a human rights and social work class, because the idea is, and I'm not going to tell their story at all. I urge you to kind of look up Prentice Hemphill and find the book so they can tell you their story in their own words. But the basic idea is it's almost impossible to ask individuals to heal when they are living and moving in structures that are still causing harm. And it's a beautifully written book. And as I went through it, I got to the end, and the first chapter was visioning, which is what I was asked to do with the class. But when I got to the last chapter, there was a part, and I wrote in the margin very lightly in pencil because it's a library book. I want to talk about this with Rob when we meet next to do the podcast. And they were talking about the moment they were falling in love. And they said, we were not only falling in love, we were in the unfolding of it. It was already here, a love that had room for generations. At the airport, as I was leaving, I said to her, I wish a love like this for everybody. Imagine what it could do. A love like this disintegrates the things you have held on to and have held on to you. And the reason I wanted to bring that up and start and have you respond in any kind of way you want to is we have set up our structures that the end, we're going to end with just kind of a general memory that's a fond memory for the two of us. That's how we're ending each of our podcasts. And last week you brought up and talked about our first date. But one of the things we didn't mention that particular quote reminded me of was halfway through our first meal when we're sitting there and looking into each other's eyes, and you've just joked about how I had to eat the Chinese food with the chopsticks, and I knew that you were funny and you were kind. It was the first time in my life that I had the thought, this is a man that I would love to raise children with. Right? So when she talked about this is a love that is open for generations, and that's the first thing I thought. I thought about imagine what we could create together. And so that was just a very special thing to me. So I just wanted to share just very briefly about the class. We do this visioning exercise where I bring in all kinds of art supplies and I ask them to think about their vision for what better would look like and create a visual representation of it. And I bring in paints and stuff to collage and glue. And the thing that everybody seems to love is Play-Doh. So the students do, and I say to them, while you're thinking of your vision, I want you to think of a 1 to 2 minute story to talk about why that represents your vision. And I was blown away. Every time I do this exercise, I'm blown away by the stories they're willing to share. And I won't share any of the stories from this particular class because of interests of privacy. But I wanted to share, just for the people who are listening, an example of one that stayed with me. And this was a middle school person. I think I did this workshop 10 years ago, and it was for a class, a leadership class for kids in middle school. Do you remember? It was at the Wang Center as well, at Stony Brook. And a young woman got up, and I had pipe cleaners, multicolored pipe cleaners, and the young woman made 2 stick figures. And in one of them, she took yellow Play-Doh and put it in where the head was, and in the other, she put red Play-Doh. And in between, she built a bridge that was half yellow and half red. And what she said was, for me, what better would look like is to take the ideas in my head and build them in the world, but to connect them with the ideas that other people have in the world and build something together. And that, from someone of any age, blew me away. But that's kind of the type of story, the type of awakening that happens when you just give people art supplies and a creative vision and time to just tell their own story.
Yeah.
So I was just excited that I got to do that class again, and I just wanted to share that with you.
No, that's great. Yeah. I remember when this is, wow, everything always seems like it was so far away, but it really was just a week ago that you did that. And and you purposely didn't want to tell me about it. Let's save it for the podcast, And so thank you for telling me that, because I thought that was, and I think you did tell me a couple of personal stories, which we obviously can't talk about here, but that image always stuck with me. The picture you had of the 2 pipe cleaner people with their ideas exchanging.
Yeah.
That's a person who's probably doing all 3 of that: healing, artist, and teaching.
Yeah.
And I think those are the people who are going to, move the needle forward in this world.
I think what was interesting, because that question was asked of me in 1992, I believe. And the reason it took you and I so long to create it was, for a long time I thought I had to have an answer to the question, what would better look like? I was going to provide an answer. But what has unfolded, we incorporated in 2010. What's unfolded is the powerful idea was we just have to ask the question.
Right. The answer's in the question itself.
Yeah. And when we build community together, there's an idea. And the idea of the antidote and the poison, if you put a group of people together in a circle, which is how we always meet, each one of them can respond. And I love that story. So this is a social worker class, where they're working on human rights and social work. And at the very beginning of the semester, they're each hearing a foundational story that's important to each of them about why they chose social work, and particularly why they care about human rights. So it was really powerful and moving. So I just wanted to share that.
Cool. Awesome.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah, I think you had maybe a better week than I did.
Well, maybe not better, but they were really full.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I wanted to share, and then we can move from there, is I don't know if you can see the shirt, but I picked this shirt on purpose, and it says emotional. And the last time I wore it was Thursday at the tea party, and that's why I'm wearing it today. But before that, the only other time I wore it was when we went to see the movie Barbie. It was a hand-me-down from my niece, and it was the only thing that I had that was pink, and I wanted to wear something pink for Barbenheimer. So I wore this shirt, and I hadn't worn it in a while, and it's kind of a transitional weather shirt. So I was going to the park, and I put it on. And it ended up, I don't know if it sparked it because I was wearing this shirt, but we ended up having some beautiful conversations. And I just wanted to throw a couple of them out for you to respond to. And I have the person's permission to tell this one story. I checked with them first. But one person who came to the table had come right after they had had an exchange with a friend that left them a little rattled. And they were angry at something that had happened, and they were processing that. We were a small group. And later on at the end of the evening, when this person had to leave, they said, "I'm really sorry that I showed up and kind of brought anger to the table." And what I shared with them, and it's a person who's been there a lot, and I know they believed me when I said it, was your emotions are your emotions, and we show up at the table the way we are. And when I talk about having a tea party, and there are beautiful cups and beautiful china, and it is a lovely event, but it's not particularly a formal event.
Right.
And when people see it at first, they may think what it's supposed to be. And I can give you a quick example. 2 weeks ago, a young woman walked by, and she said, "I love this." It was myself and two women who were around my age, and she said, "When I'm your age, I hope I'm doing stuff like this." And she said,
Right.
and I'm
Little insulting. I
no,
think?
no, no,
Oh,
no,
okay.
no. We are women
Yeah.
of a certain
Okay.
age, right? And she said, "I love that you're doing something where women can gather." And I said to her, "Well," I said, "we'll be here till 11 o'clock at night. And if you want to come back at work, not everyone is my age, and it's not all women if you want to get a sense. And it's this really beautiful community." And she not only did come back that night, but she came back this week and she brought blueberry muffins that she had made. And I love that there is this different energy, and there's a wave to how the day goes. We get there around 11 in the morning and we stay till the park closes. But I really like that idea about making sure people understand that they show up how they show up. Go ahead.
The person who was angry.
Yeah.
What was the rest of that story?
Oh, she didn't say about why she. Oh no, I said she came. Oh, she came to me at the end and said she was sorry that she brought anger to the table.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought there was.
No, I
She was
don't
going
want.
to
No, I
why.
don't.
Okay.
No, I don't need
All
to
right,
go
that's not
into
really a
why.
particularly secret thing that you could have gotten permission for. You gave like no information. I thought you
No,
were gonna
but
say,
just to share that they showed up with
oh,
that.
okay. I thought you were just gonna like confess to murder or something. I
No,
had
no,
no.
no.
Oh,
She
okay.
was upset that this friend had rattled her, and she brought that energy
I
to the
see.
table.
Okay.
But it was just when I said to her, "You show up how you show up," and that anger is a safe emotion to express at the table. And it was because I could hold it. Now, maybe if there had been someone sitting at the table who's uncomfortable with the fact that they were a little angry, I would have worked through that or kind of facilitated that. But that I can, people come how they come, and you're allowed to come. And anger isn't necessarily a negative emotion. Rage can be, but if when things happen that really upset us, I want people to know that the tea party is a place where they can come, and at least in a corner of the table, there's someone who can hold whatever they're bringing to the table. But the other conversation that happened at what we call tea party after dark, when the lights come on in the park because it's starting to get dark, we cheer and we joke about the fact that tea party after dark tends to be a little quieter. There are fewer
Right.
people, and the conversations.
It also gets a little blue.
Well, it can. Not always. But the thing that I like is we can have kind of quieter, more intimate conversations sometimes. And while we were sitting there this week, again, the emotions, someone said to me, and another one of the people at the table, what is happiness to you? And how do you know when you're happy? And it led to a conversation that was on and off for the last 2 hours of the tea party. And I want to know, first of all, do you have a response when I ask you that question before I go into what I had said? Do you have a response if someone said to you, what does happy mean to you, and what does that feel like for you?
What does happy mean to me?
Yeah,
Happy. Whew, that's an
I
interesting
know.
question. It for me it means I at the core of it I think happy means to me is if everyone I know is happy. And so then I'm fulfilled with that. If there's an energy around me that's not happy, no, thank you. If there's an energy around me that's not happy, I'm like, I don't know the word for it, but I absorb that and I become unhappy. Or if someone around me is angry, and then that's the energy I take in. So it's both selfless and selfish for me to have other people around me be happy, if that
Wow,
makes sense.
it
Yeah.
does. Well, it's interesting because I do think it came up because we were talking about the T-shirt and it said about my shirt and that it said emotional and what emotions are like. And what's interesting to me, in contrast to what this young woman thought, that it was a gathering for women, that I find the people who are hanging out, and those of you who follow me on social media see towards the end of the night, it's a smaller gathering, but it tends to be a lot of men hanging out till the end. And we sit and we have beautiful conversations. And one of the things that came up in the last couple of weeks are, where are those spaces where we're free to just be who we are in the moment we are and show up however we're feeling. And I've done my best to make sure the tea party is that. And one of the things I responded to this person with was, I don't know that I always focus on happiness or being happy, which I think came as a surprise to someone at the table who started to push back. And I said, as you said, if you're someone who's more sensitive, if you're someone who's more empathic, there's a lot of people in a lot of pain right now. And when you're sitting in the middle of a park, like in the middle of a city, 1 block from Times Square, where you're dealing with the crossroads of humanity, you feel a lot of feelings and emotions. And even just among my friends, there's a lot of people who are struggling. And we've started to talk about the fact that I think a lot of people are just okay. But we don't always talk about the fact that we're just okay.
Right.
And I can feel that from people. And I said, and I tried to distinguish, I think what I focus on more than happy is joyful. Right? And for me, it's hard to feel happy when my friends are in pain. It's hard for me to feel happy when my friends are struggling to pay their bills. It's hard for me to be happy when my friends lose people who are important to them. But I think what I try to do is be present to whatever it is, be present to whatever's showing up, be real about the emotions we're all feeling, and then to find a sense of joy in true connection, if that makes sense. So it was some version, and then the person had a lot of questions, but I think where it ended up, and this was someone additionally that I had said, asked if I can talk about this conversation, that it was so freeing for this person to know that they could just show up however they had to show up, and they didn't have to show up feeling happy, if you will, just because we were in this setting. Yeah. And it was just a really powerful, important conversation for me.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So is there anything else that you wanted to respond to or bring up about what's going on with you?
No, I like again. Those things are they were very uplifting spiritually. Unfortunately, just because of the nature of each of the projects, I can't talk too much about them just yet. I'm also of that mind. I don't want to jinx myself
Okay.
with certain things, and and I've also been in a situation where like, well, this is exactly what we're doing, and we got the green light, and we're doing this, and then nothing happens, and I kind of look stupid. So, and so I'm just very cautious until we're I have something underway and it's concrete, I usually don't want to jinx myself and talk about it anymore.
Okay.
But that's, yeah.
Well,
But now, usually what we do, I think the format that's developing with this podcast is that we talk about things that are happening to us now. And I think we end the show with memories, like fond memories of things that we have done or have had happen to us or events in our lives from yesteryear. Is that correct?
yeah, and I think another thing that we can do is really give people a glimpse into who we are, why we live the way we do, some of the choices we've made that have left us to living in this space.
Right.
And so the one story I want to share, because I talked about that, a love for the generations, I thought what I would ask you, maybe in terms of the memory, is our boys were named really specifically with very powerful names that were powerful to both of us.
Right.
So would you like to speak a little to that, about who our boys are, or what their names are and why they're named that?
Yeah. So when our eldest Josh was born, we were discussing while he was still in utero. We were discussing what type of names we would come up with. I think if it was a boy, if it was a girl, I think we wanted Alessandra.
Well, I was just going to say, before going to the specific names, right? For me, it was really important that we have a name that was tied to, like, my spiritual or religious tradition.
Okay.
I wanted kind of that name. But what was important to you in terms of a name, that they had what kind of name?
They had to name someone who was important to me personally as an artist.
Right.
Right. So you got to choose the first names essentially, and I got to choose the middle names. And I was, yeah. And so, yeah, the boy, we had a bunch of names. You at one point wanted to name him Sting. And
I'd like to interject and say my girlfriend's friends caught wind of that, and that's all they call me now. Actually, because they were calling me Mr. Joshua, and I am now Mr. Stingua. That's my name now.
There are
Oh, yeah.
worse people you could have been named for, but go
yes.
ahead.
And by the way, that's what we'll be calling him in the house from now on.
So go ahead.
But then it got boiled down to, if we had boys, we would call him Josh or we would call him Jacob. And then I came up with the middle names, and those names are important to me. And I wanted Marley after Bob Marley for a middle name of one of our sons, and I wanted Lennon after John Lennon for a middle name of one of our sons. And so we decided on Joshua for our first child because I wanted our first child's middle name to be Marley. So we decided on Joshua instead of Jacob because we didn't want a Jacob Marley, for you Dickens fans out there, as the name of our first child. So we came up with Joshua Marley, and then when Jacob was born, he was Jacob Lennon.
And I'll just say for everyone who's watching that the reason is because those two names was because your two favorite songs are.
Our Marley's Redemption song. And if you haven't heard it, just go on YouTube or Spotify. It's an incredibly amazing song. And really, it's about a lot of deep things, but as an artist, it has a bit of a different meaning as well. And Imagine by John Lennon.
Yeah, so to us it was always important, right? I said that we had this kind of traditional spiritual name that was important to myself and my family, but also that you picked the name of artists that were super influential to you.
Right, exactly.
So, and I think they knew that all the time, so we cultivated them as
Right.
both kind of to always think about yourself as a spiritual being
Right.
and an artist, and that they're intertwined. Like, they're not separable.
Right.
Who you are as a spirit and who you are as an artist.
Yeah, and I chose musical artists because otherwise Josh's middle name would be Spielberg, and that would have been really weird.
Aw. All right.
So
Well, I think we could wrap that up.
I think we can wrap that up. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for tuning in, and I love you.
I love you too. All right. Bye.
Bye.